sacred harmony, where soulful truth meets meaningful transformation. Today's guest, Branch Isole, is poetic storyteller, theologian, and global thinker whose writings shine a light on the often unspoken dimensions of spiritual growth. With over 20 books, a podcast titled Patience Zero, and a lifetime of inner and outer journeys, Branch invites us into a rich conversation about personal responsibility, spiritual maturity, and finding truth through reflecting living. Get ready to slow down, tune in, and awaken something deep within. Welcome to the show, Branch. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you, Anya. It's an honor for me to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Mhm. So, Branch, your work often explores personal responsibility as a path to spiritual growth. Why do you think owning our choices is such a central part of the spiritual journey?
Wow, great question. Well, as we go through life every day, we have lots of choices and lots of decisions to make with the people, the circumstances, and the events that we come across in life. And the most important thing we can do is be personally responsible for our thoughts, words, and actions, because it's a reflection of our character. And our character is who we are within. The essence of our spirit drives our character. And our character is what we show to the world as we go through our daily relationships and activities. And so taking personal responsibility not only allows us to continue to grow every time we are successful or every time we, meet a challenge and are not necessarily as successful as we want to be. But the thing about personal responsibility is it eliminates us taking that opportunity to make excuses for our words and our actions. And so the personal responsibility of us being here in the physical world is directly connected to who we are spiritually and the spirit that we came into this world with.
Absolutely. And do you think many people resist this because accountability feels heavy rather than liberating at first?
Exactly. We all resist accountability, dependability, reliability. We resist those things, and yet that's what our daily life and our daily activities and our daily relationships are made up of. See, those are the lessons of the world, and those are the lessons that we grow up from childhood trying to understand, but dealing with, in our everyday interactions. And so, because we are in that place of the world, and that's what we know and that's what we embrace because that's what we know from first breath. That's our operational base. We are operating in the world with everyone else that we come into contact with who is also operating from that same place. And so that's where our struggle comes from. It's that struggle between who we innately know we are spiritually and who we are operating in this world. And most people, they sort of put their spirit on the back burner. See, nobody comes into this life knowing about God or religion or spiritual pathways. And so those are interest areas that we are exposed to at some point in our life. And we either embrace it or reject it, or we try it and, fall off and try another path and fall off. And we're always searching for two things. We're always searching for truth because that's the purpose of life, is to understand and embrace truth. And we're always searching for love. And so truth and love, being the character and nature of the universal consciousness, what we label as God, or Allah or Brahma or Jesus, whatever label we give to that concept of God, the spirit of the universe, which is truth and love, is our quest and our goal here in life. So we're always searching for truth and we're always seeking love. And those two things are our innate and prime motivation. But in the way of that motivation are the layers of life, our activities and life. So there's this constant struggle between us, the spiritual us, and us, the physical us. And because we are in a physical world and we embrace the world's ways, the physical ways, and that's what we come to know and learn, that's where we put our energies. So that's why the spiritual path is often so difficult. That seed is in there, that pilot light is there. It's just not getting enough fuel to bring balance between the spiritual me and the physical me. And so, as we're exposed to spiritual pathways and we decide to make a choice on which spiritual pathway we are going to walk, that influences who we are physically. And that's why there's such a dichotomy, a difference between people who are in the world and people who are in the world and of the world. See, if you don't have that spiritual balance between the spirit you and the physical you, then the struggles of the world become real evident. And that's where we spend all of our time, is trying to create a balance, but we're only giving energy to the physical things, the physical world. So when we feed, when we reactivate the spirit that's in us, that we came into this world with, then we start to recognize truth in our world and in ourselves. And when we recognize truth, we recognize how to bring that balance about so that we can become better people, better husbands, better wives, better fathers, better mothers, better co-workers.
And that's such a vital reframe. Like, accountability doesn't imprison us, it frees us from denial.
Yeah, exactly. There's 12 basic lessons in life that everyone goes through from first breath to last breath. And these 12 lessons have been, part of man's growth and struggle since the beginning. Everyone who has ever lived goes through these same 12 lessons of life. And let me tell you what they are real quickly. The first one is insecurity. We all come into this world as malleable babes, naked and alone, and we learn about our world. We embrace our world because that's what we know. But in knowing the world, we are immediately, about toddler age too, we immediately start to become aware of insecurities that we have as we compare ourselves to the people in our world. So that's the first base lesson where everybody starts, is insecurities. And as long as we are in that place, as long as we give our insecurity power, it's very difficult for us to take on the other lessons and challenges of life as we grow. The second one is personal responsibility. We've touched on that. The third one is dependability, then reliability, then accountability, and then credibility. And these are the foundational lessons of life that we experience and interact with through the people and events and circumstances of our daily living. Um, the next one is risk. And in risk, we have to decide, am I going to risk growing beyond these basic lessons of life, the physical lessons of life, the things that we're engaged with other people in? Am I going to risk looking at and going into the other lessons of life? And those are commitment, trust, forgiveness, truth, and love. And so you see the basis, the ground level lessons of life are the things that we do in our interactions in the physical world. Commitment and trust and forgiveness, truth and love are the esoteric ones. Those are the ones that relate to the inner us, to the spiritual us. And so that's where we're trying to bring this balance. So in order to be accountable and credible and reliable and dependable, we have to embrace our personal responsibility, because that's the key lesson for us to be able to take on the challenges of the other lessons of life. And we can do that quickly and more easily the sooner that we let go of our insecurities, right? Our insecurities are always based in I'm either too much or I'm not enough, and that can be I'm too thin, I'm too short, I'm too bald, whatever it may be, or I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not coordinated enough. And so once we accept who we are and come from our strengths, and we put our insecurities aside, then we can take on personal responsibility. And that's our launching pad for all the other lessons in life and all the challenges that life throws at us from first breath to last.
100%. And you have written extensively through poetic short stories. How does poetry help people access spiritual truth that might otherwise be too abstract or intimidating?
Well, the great thing about poetry is it's self reflective, right? It can be a story, but it's basically about me, the reader. And whatever the theme or the underlying lesson in the poem, it's all about the reader or the listener. Poetry is the original literary form. It's been around since we made fire in caves, right? Uh, in those prehistoric days, life was lessened and taught through stories around the campfire at night. This is how generation after generation learned about their life and learned about survival. But poetry was the original literary form of mythology. And that's where all of our literature comes from. So poetry has a place today that's still as strong, although it may not be as popular with a lot of people. But poetry is the one literary form that allows you to share something or teach something in a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end in a very brief or concise format. Poetry actually should, and I think is, regaining a spot because we live in an age, right, where everybody is 140 characters or less, and everything is very brief and abbreviated. So poetry, as a short story form, fits in perfect with today's sort of busy and active lifestyles. So hopefully more people will enjoy poetry, but poetry always has a lesson and a theme that's for the reader or the listener.
hmm That's amazing. And do you find that storytelling can bypass resistance in ways doctrine or dogma often can't?
Well, storytelling is the basis of our communication, right? No matter who we're interacting with, and no matter what agenda we have or what we're trying to share with that person, a story format is always not only entertaining, but it's relatable. And that's why storytelling is so important, because it gives us, it sort of fills out the foundation of the essentials that we're trying to communicate, no matter the situation. If we can tell a story, there's somebody in our audience who can relate to that story. That's what life is all about. Because again, because we're all dealing with the same challenges in those 12 lessons of life, everyone's story um, has a different relationship to whatever that particular lesson or challenge is. And that's why storytelling is not only important, but it serves such a great purpose, because it can be entertaining, it can be educational, it can edify. It just hits a lot of those different emotions and emotional levels. And if you want to make an impact on someone, tie into or key into their emotions. That's where the true connection takes place between people. And that's why stories and storytelling are so important, because it can teach, it can enhance, but it can also touch emotions. And that's where you find that you can move people to action, is by tying into emotions.
Absolutely. And when we feel a story in our bones, we are often more open to transformation than when we're just told what to believe.
Sure, because the story is reflective not only of the storyteller, but also of the listener. And that's what makes the connection stronger. It's why jokes are so important, to bring out humor, because it's it's something we can all identify with. And if someone tells a joke and several people connect with that joke and they laugh, there's a connection, there's a vibration in the aura of the story that goes out from the storyteller 360 degrees. And anyone who is involved in that activity, when that humor hits home and people react with laughter, there's an instant and momentary community there, that everybody is in that same place.
Definitely. And you hold a master's in theology, yet your work feels grounded and accessible. How do you bridge the gap between formal theology and everyday spiritual experience?
Well, that's a great question. And the only way I can answer it is that every spiritual path, every religion, regardless of the tenets of that religion, are all grounded in the same spiritual concept. And we find this if you look at all of the scriptures or the holy books of any spiritual system and any religion. If you go down to the base core of what they're about, they are all talking about the same thing. And that is love God first and most, treat your neighbor as yourself. In Christianity, that's one of the teachings, obviously, of Christ. But that same teaching, if we look at Hinduism, their scripture says, treat others as you yourself would be treated. In Judaism, it's what you yourself hate, do to no man. Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, told us, hurt not others with that which pains yourself. And Muhammad in the Islamic religion says, do unto all men as you would wish to have done to you. Even Native American spiritual is grounded in live in harmony, for we are all related. So spirit is the core of every religion and every spiritual belief system. So they're all the same. Love God first and most, treat others the way you want to be treated. You see, if we only did these two things in our life, we would automatically, A, become better people, but B, you would also be able to automatically reduce the stress, struggle, the pressure, and the conflict in your life, because the spiritual essence of who we are all comes from the same place. We are all a spirit of origination or a spirit of originality as part of universal consciousness, truth, and love.
That's amazing. And how has your global travel influenced your spiritual lens and teachings?
Well, for a long time, I lived in the world and I embraced the world's ways, and I was very successful in the world. But I also found that the person that I was and the person that I had become was of the world. And therefore, I did the world's things and the world's ways. And And I hurt a lot of people and I did a lot of damage. And I realized I had to change my life because that was not who I wanted to be. And so I went on a quest looking for truth. And that led me to a 5-year journey looking at various religions and spiritual systems and teachings. And what it brought me back to was what I just described, this fundamental truth that is in every religion and every spiritual system. So once you understand that, you can make that choice. You reach that fork in the road. You can make the choice to start responding the world's way, the way I had been responding for 40 years, and all the things that it got me, good, bad, and ugly. Or I could respond in a new spiritual way. And once you make that decision, you start to see truth in the world and in your life. And once you see truth, you automatically see the untruth, the lies and the fabrications and the falsehoods. And then the choice is, okay, how do I want to respond in this situation? Do I want to respond truthfully or spiritually grounded? Or do I want to keep responding the way I've been responding my entire life? And the difference is, well, you already know what your past has brought you. Again, good, bad, or ugly. If you go the other path, the spiritual path, you start to respond truthfully, and all the negative energy in your life will fall away, because the last place negative energy wants to be is in the presence of truth. But once you start down that path, like I said, the struggle falls away, the stress falls away, and you start to make good decisions that are in your best interest and in the best interest of the people that you care for, your family, your community, your neighborhood. And by embracing that path, you eliminate all of the negative in life. And that just brings you to a new place, and you're able to continue to grow because you don't have all this negative energy dragging at you like you did before.
It's clear your insights aren't just learned, they are lived, which makes your wisdom so relatable and real.
Well, thank you, but it's a choice. We all make choices, and all of our choices have consequences. When you make a choice to live truthfully, the first thing you're doing is you're being truthful with yourself. And when you're truthful with yourself, you start to recognize the better you, the better person that's been inside and been trying to, come to the outside. And in that way, making that discovery allows you to be the person that you are here intended to be. You see, we all have a purpose and we all have a skill or a talent. And our choice is to share that with the people in our lives, the people we care for, like I said, our family, our neighborhood, our community, or not. And so the choice to take that fork in the road is one that everyone faces every day. Yeah, that's why there's a lot of people who go down a spiritual path only to fall off of that path, right? And go back to embracing their old pattern behaviors and their old pattern life. So it's not necessarily a one and done proposition, but the further you go down that path of truth, the more you know yourself and the more you can adapt to be the best you in any situation. And that's what the purpose of life is, for us to be better people, to be part of the brotherhood and the sisterhood of life. And when we are in that place, we recognize, the fallacies of the world's ways. But it has to be that way. We have to have a choice between righteousness and unrighteousness, good and evil, light and darkness. That's what the path is all about. But we just happen to be in a physical world which promotes the physical ways of the world, which are in direct opposition to the spiritual ways. And that's where the struggle comes, but all of us at some point reach that fork or reach that depth where we decide, I've got to change my life. And when we're in that place, we have a choice to make. And the choice continues then on a daily basis. Every day, we're continuing to be challenged by the people and the events and the circumstances of life. So that choice is over and over and over again. But the thing about becoming spiritual, grounded in your life is the longer you're on that path and the more you respond truthfully and lovingly, the easier that path becomes. And the easier the path becomes, the greater the rewards, the greater the blessings. You see, there's nothing in this life that can fill the desires and the void in your heart better or more than a spiritually grounded relationship with something outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And what a soul deep exchange with Branch Isole. His words remind us that spiritual growth isn't a mountaintop moment, it's a quiet unfolding through choices, stories, and self trust. If you have been waiting for a sign to begin, this is it. Start where you are, with what you know, and trust that clarity will meet you on the path. Until next time on Sacred Harmony, stay open, stay honest, and stay in the witness.